On my birthday, my husband's sister cut me off mid-cake and sneered, "You don't deserve the spotlight." My husband just shrugged, calling it a joke. I smiled and replied, "Then she'll love mine." Seconds later, her face turned pale as the truth I'd hidden finally hit her. I'm Clara Whitmore, 35, and up until that night, I still believed my life, my marriage, was built on something real. My husband, Noah, and I had been married for 9 years. We lived in a beautiful townhouse tucked away in Boston's South End, the kind with ivy crawling up the brick and a fire escape that caught the golden light every morning. To the outside world, we were a picture-perfect couple, refined, stable, kind. And I believed that, too. Or I wanted to. There was always one thread unraveled, though. One thing I couldn't quite tie up, no matter how much effort I poured in. His sister. Juliet. Juliet was 39. 4 years older than Noah. Beautiful in a magazine cover kind of way, with cold gray eyes and a voice like velvet dipped in disdain. From the very first time we met, I could feel her assessing me like a threat. Not overtly hostile, no. Juliet was too smooth for that. But everything was a performance, and she always needed a stage. If I bought a new dress, she showed up with a designer label. If I got a promotion, she'd interrupt with, "Oh, I'm thinking of launching a company," and then do nothing about it. Our wedding? She announced her own engagement at our reception. It didn't last, of course. None of her stunts ever did. But they always left a bitter aftertaste. Noah's response? Always the same. She's just like that. She doesn't mean anything by it. She likes to joke. But it wasn't funny anymore. Not to me. This year had already been brutal. Work had chewed me up and spit me out more than once. I lost a close friend in a car accident. And still, I clung to the idea of something joyful. Just a small birthday dinner at our home. Soft jazz humming in the background. Candles flickering. A few close friends, my in-laws, my parents. Simple. Warm. Noah suggested it himself, and I remember thinking, maybe he sees me. Maybe he understands I just need one night that feels like peace. I was wrong. That night, everything was perfect, for a while. The table was filled with laughter and wine. The cake, a lavender lemon I'd always wanted to try, sat in the center like a promise. I stood, smiling, holding the knife. My friends clapped. My father started singing that off-key version of Happy Birthday that always made me laugh. And just as I leaned in to cut the first slice, I heard the deliberate clink of a wine glass. Juliet. She rose from her chair slowly, gracefully, as if the whole evening had been her waiting room. "Before we do this," she said, voice silky, "I just want to say something." The knife in my hand paused midair. Every eye turned to her. Juliet smiled like she was standing on a red carpet. "I just think it's adorable that we're all here, celebrating this big milestone. I mean, 35? That's not exactly a headline-worthy age, right?" A few awkward chuckles echoed. I felt my stomach twist. "But," she continued, hand drifting to her flat stomach, "you know what is a milestone? Creating life." She paused. "I'm pregnant." Gasps. Applause. Oh my gods. I stood there, frozen, fingers still curled around the cake knife, but my birthday was already over. She had snatched the spotlight like she always did, but this time it wasn't just a party. It was my night. And once again, I was invisible. "Noah?" He shrugged. "She's just joking around," he muttered. No outrage. No defense. Just detachment. My friends gave me those pitying glances people use when they don't know whether to hug you or pretend nothing's wrong. And Juliet? She sat back down, hand daintily resting on her still flat belly, basking in the glow of attention. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream or throw the knife or storm upstairs. No. I smiled. Because while she believed she had stolen my moment, what she didn't know was that 3 weeks earlier, I'd found out everything. That baby? That wasn't just a power move. It was evidence. And Juliet had no idea her entire world was about to implode. It happened 3 weeks before my birthday. A Wednesday night, quiet and cold. The kind of night where the city outside sounds like wind and echoes. Noah had just stepped into the shower, steam curling beneath the door. I was curled up on the couch, flipping through a book I wasn't really reading. I was exhausted, burned out from another long day, from holding everything together. That's when I heard it. A soft ding from the kitchen. Noah's laptop. I glanced over, instinctively. He had left it open, something he rarely did. I wasn't snooping. God, I wish I had been. At least then I could have prepared myself. But no. I just looked. A reflex. And the subject line hit me like ice. Deposit confirmed, $2,500 transfer complete. From his bank. To Juliet. I froze. My breath caught somewhere between confusion and dread. Why was he sending her money? That kind of money? 1,000 thoughts tangled in my head, maybe she needed help? Maybe there was an emergency? Maybe this had a reasonable explanation? I clicked. It was real. Not a one-time thing. The transaction history, right there. Line after line of money being siphoned to Juliet. Monthly. Sometimes bi-weekly. Always thousands. My heartbeat began to race. I clicked again, and this time it opened their messages. My hands were trembling, but I couldn't stop. Curiosity? No. It was survival now. Juliet, what if she finds out? Noah, she won't. Just stick to the story. We'll say the baby's from someone else. Juliet, she's not stupid, Noah. Noah, then we gaslight her. Like always. My vision blurred. I couldn't feel my fingers. Like always. That line did something to me. It shattered everything, the dinners we'd shared, the nights we'd fallen asleep talking about dreams, the gentle way he used to touch my hair when I cried. All of it crumbled under the weight of that one vile truth. He wasn't just cheating. He was cheating with his own sister. I sat there, rigid, as if moving would break me into pieces. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. I wanted to cry, but my body refused. All I could do was sit, the glow of that betrayal lighting up the screen, searing its truth into me. And then. I stood. I grabbed my coat. My purse. I didn't know where I was going, just that I couldn't stay. The air outside hit me like a slap. Cold. Real. Honest. I walked. Past the cafes where we used to hold hands. Past the bookstore where he bought me my first edition of Sylvia Plath. Past the world I thought I belonged in. And somewhere between the glow of a flickering lamppost and the rustle of a sleeping tree, I stopped. My knees felt weak, but my mind had never been sharper. I wasn't going to cry in our apartment while they laughed behind my back. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to break. I was going to bury them. That night, I called an old friend, Maya, a lawyer who once helped me through a work dispute. She didn't ask questions. Just gave me a number. A private investigator. The next morning, I made the call. Find everything, I said, voice steady despite the storm inside me. Hotels, texts, dinners, receipts. I want proof. All of it. He chuckled lightly on the other end. You got it. And so the wheels turned. Quiet. Deadly. Beautiful. While Juliet decorated her lie and Noah smiled like a faithful husband, I waited. I smiled at dinners. Kissed him goodnight. Even let him hold me. Because this time, I wasn't the fool. I was the fire. And I was going to make sure that by the time she picked up her glass to toast her pregnancy, the whole damn world would burn around her. The night of my birthday came like a calm before a storm. Everything was perfect, on the surface. The table glowed with soft candlelight, glasses shimmered with Pinot Noir, and laughter draped itself lazily around the room like a silk scarf. Friends leaned in, parents smiled, even Noah played the part, hand resting on the small of my back like nothing was rotting beneath our skin. Juliet? She was unusually radiant, sitting smug in a champagne-colored dress. She looked like someone who believed the universe bent itself to her whims. She wasn't wrong. Until tonight. The lavender lemon cake sat in the center of the table, untouched but glowing, like it knew what was coming. I stood with the cake knife, a smile poised on my lips. I didn't shake. I didn't flinch. I was an actress, and this was my stage. And just as I leaned in to cut the first slice. Clink. That same glass, that same tone, that same poison. Juliet rose to her feet, smile gleaming like a blade. Before we cut the cake, she purred, I have something to share. I lowered the knife. My hand was steady, but my heart had already begun the countdown. Juliet placed her palm gently on her stomach. I'm pregnant. Gasps. Cheers. People turned to her with glowing faces, reaching for her hand, congratulating, celebrating. I stood still. Noah looked at me, gave a little shrug, and said, under his breath, she just likes to joke. Still? After everything, still? Juliet sat back down, basking in her stolen moment. One hand on her stomach. The other on the ruins of what should have been mine. I lifted my wine glass and cleared my throat. Everyone turned. I just want to say, I began, eyes sweeping across the guests, that's such incredible news, Juliet. Life is a miracle. Especially when the father, I paused, is already married. Silence. A dead, suffocating silence. Juliet's smile cracked. Noah stiffened, like someone had poured ice water down his spine. What? Someone whispered. I reached into the pocket of my coat and pulled out my phone. One tap. The TV on the wall flickered to life. Photos. Messages. Hotel receipts. Screenshots of bank transfers. All of it, a mosaic of betrayal. Gasps. A wine glass shattered on the floor. Juliet's face went bone white. Noah opened his mouth, closed it. Opened it again. Nothing came out. I was calm. Centered. The eye of the storm I had summoned. Juliet stammered, "You're lying, this is insane." I cut her off with a raised hand. "You'll want to sit for this." I pulled out a folder from under the table and slid it across the tablecloth like a royal flush. "If I'm lying, then none of you will mind reading the details. Here's the hotel registry from the Ritz. The spa appointments. The dinner in Newport. The room service for 2. My best friend Rachel leaned over, flipped open the folder. "Oh my God," she whispered. Noah lunged to snatch it, but Rachel yanked it back. "Sit. Down." He did. I almost laughed. The room shifted into chaos. Noah's mother, Eleanor, clutched her chest. His father, Thomas, looked like someone had kicked him in the gut. And Juliet. Juliet tried to recover. "It's not what it looks like." "Then explain the texts," I said, voice still silk, "where you talk about lying to me. About faking paternity. About how I'm just a stupid pawn." Juliet rose to her feet, breath shallow. "Noah, say something." But Noah was pale. Quiet. Ashen. "You told me, we were in this together," he muttered. "Because you are." Juliet shrieked. "No," he whispered, stepping back. "No. You used me. You used everyone." He turned to me. "Clara. I'm sorry." I shook my head. "You don't get to be sorry." And then, Juliet ran. She shoved past chairs, nearly fell, scrambled toward the door. Noah followed, calling her name. And I picked up the cake knife. The guest sat frozen, still shell-shocked. I sliced myself the biggest damn piece and took a bite. And it was delicious. The house emptied slowly after the explosion. Some guests left in stunned silence, others lingered, whispering in corners, unsure whether to offer comfort or escape the chaos altogether. Rachel stayed. So did my mother-in-law, Eleanor, her face ashen, her eyes blank. Thomas, Noah's father, had followed the 2 traitors out into the night, muttering something about putting an end to this filth. I was left alone in my kitchen, staring down at the crumbs of my half-eaten birthday cake. And for a while, I felt victorious. I had done it. I had stolen the moment back. I had turned their lies into truth, their power into ash. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible, I felt seen. Heard. In control. But that high? It didn't last. I should have known better. Juliet wasn't the kind of person to run without a plan. The next morning, I woke up to 30 missed calls. 12 unread texts. But it wasn't the number that sent the chill crawling up my spine, it was the name flashing across my screen. "Mr. Lawrence, my boss." "Clara," he said as soon as I answered, voice low, flat. "We need to talk. Now." I sat up, heart slamming into my ribs. "What's going on?" "There's been a situation," he said carefully. "Someone sent HR a file. Multiple emails, actually. Screenshots. Accusations." My mouth went dry. "Accusations of what?" He hesitated. "Workplace bullying. Embezzlement. Harassment. They even included a testimonial from a former coworker." I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. "That's what? That's insane." "I know," he replied. "But HR is required to take it seriously. Effective immediately, you're on administrative leave while we investigate." I dropped the phone. My legs gave out beneath me. I sank to the floor, the cold tiles grounding me in a way I didn't want. I was back there again, frozen, powerless. She had taken my birthday, then my husband, and now she was coming for my life. My career. My name. I curled my fingers into fists until they ached. "You want war, Juliet? Fine. You'll have it." By noon, I was calling lawyers. By 2, I had a meeting with HR. The testimonial was vague, unsigned, and clearly fabricated. The coworker they referenced had never worked in my department. I called her myself, she was horrified. "I would never say something like that," she said. "Clara, what's going on?" "Juliet happened," I replied through clenched teeth. It wasn't enough to ruin my marriage. Now she wanted to bury me professionally. Destroy my reputation. Make me small again. But this time, she had underestimated one thing. I wasn't the same Clara she toyed with all those years. That afternoon, as I was poring over legal documents, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost declined. Almost. But something in my gut told me to answer. "Hello?" I said cautiously. Silence. Then, "Is this Clara?" "Yes." "Who is this?" Another pause. A breath. "My name is Melanie. I used to be Juliet's best friend. Anne. I think we need to talk." I sat up straighter. About what? About Juliet. And what she did to you. And to others. I met her that night in a quiet cafe tucked between two bookstores. Melanie was in her late 30s, her eyes tired but sharp. She's a parasite, she said plainly. You're not her first. She's been pulling stunts like this for years. Melanie told me everything. How Juliet had once planted drugs in a friend's car out of jealousy. How she'd faked stalkers. Lied. Manipulated. Blackmailed. She even tried to frame her own mother for theft to get inheritance early. I felt sick. She did the same thing to another married man, Melanie said, lowering her voice. And when his wife found out, Juliet launched a smear campaign, exactly like what she's doing to you. That woman lost her job, her name, everything. Why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice barely steady. Melanie looked me straight in the eye. Because she did it to me, too. And now? I want her to burn. I leaned back, the weight of it all crashing into me. This wasn't about a cheating husband anymore. This wasn't even about betrayal. It was about a woman who had built her entire life out of lies, and finally, she'd chosen the wrong victim. I pulled out my phone, and this time, I wasn't calling a friend. I was calling the private investigator. I need everything, I said, voice calm and cold. Every lawsuit, every threat, every scandal Juliet has ever touched. We're not just ending this. We're exposing her. He paused on the other line. Then, it's about damn time. It took just 5 days. 5 days for my private investigator to unearth Juliet's trail of destruction. Lawsuits. NDA settlements. Anonymous police reports. Former co-workers. Burned bridges. Broken lives. It was all there. I spent my nights cross-referencing names, building a timeline, collecting affidavits from people who had been too afraid to speak, until now. And when I called Richard, Noah's father, he didn't hesitate. What do you need me to do? He said, voice low, already loaded with fury. Help me set the trap, I replied. And this time, let's make sure everyone hears it. He called Eleanor. Played the part of a grieving father, desperate to bring his family back together. We'll hold a dinner, he said. A chance to clear the air. To forgive. Juliet, ever the delusional actress, agreed instantly. Noah, hollowed and broken, just followed. They had no idea they were walking into their own funeral. The night of the dinner, I wore black. Not a dress of mourning, but of power. Matte silk, sharp neckline, no jewelry. Just my presence. My silence. My control. The table was full. Richard at the head. Eleanor beside him, stiff with nerves. Rachel and Melanie flanked me, papers tucked into neat folders. And across from us, Juliet, lips glossy, eyes smug. Noah beside her, gaunt and quiet, hands twitching. I'll start, Richard said, leaning forward. We've all made mistakes. But some mistakes need truth before they can heal. Juliet rolled her eyes. Oh, come on. Can we stop with the dramatics? I smiled gently. You want truth, Juliet? She flicked her hair. I am the truth. No, I said, sliding the first folder across the table. You're a pattern. Melanie opened it. The first file, a lawsuit from 5 years ago, Juliet had accused a coworker of stalking her. The charges were dropped. The man lost his job. The second file, a police report. Juliet had planted prescription pills in a friend's glove box out of spite. The third, a sealed settlement from a college professor who'd been accused by an 18-year-old Juliet of harassment, after he failed her. The room grew colder with every flip of the page. Eleanor gasped, hand to her chest. Tell me this isn't true. Juliet's smile faltered. You can't prove anything. Don't need to, I interrupted. It's all here. Names. Testimonies. Police records. I did what I had to do, she snapped. Those people deserved it. And me? I asked softly. Did I deserve it too? Juliet stood. You were always so smug, Clara. So perfect. Someone needed to take you down. Noah looked at her then, really looked. You did all of this, he whispered. She turned to him. Noah, I did it for us. He shook his head. You lied. Used me. You destroyed everything. Juliet reached for his hand, desperate. You said you loved me. I was sick, he said, pulling away. But I'm not blind anymore. Silence rippled across the room. Then he turned to me. I don't expect you to forgive me. But Clara. I'm sorry. I stood slowly, calm as dusk. You don't get to be sorry, I said. You get to live with what you did. And then I turned to Juliet, who now stood alone, mascara smudging, hands trembling. I'm not just walking away, Juliet. I've sent this to your employer, your landlord, and every single person who paid for your lies. You're done. She screamed, an unearthly, furious noise, and lunged. But Richard stood between us. "Don't," he said, voice like thunder. "You're not touching her again." Juliet froze. And then, as if the weight finally hit her, she crumbled, fell to her knees and sobbed into her hands. No one moved. No one comforted her. Noah walked out of the house. Quiet. Alone. Eleanor followed, whispering prayers. And me? I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I picked up my glass of wine, raised it slightly, and whispered to myself. To silence. To fire. To freedom. And then I walked out the door, not looking back once.